Okay, guys, let's start. So today we have the Deconstruction workshop. I guess this is the third one on the White Nights. And today we will deconstruct the 3 amazing games. Let's start from the introduction of our speakers. So I guess you can do that better than me.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Vera. I'm the CEO of Owl Studio, and this is a company providing art outsource services. And for now, it's about 50 artists we have. That's why we have a lot of different projects and different games we're working with. And I'm honored to be here and to be part of this deconstructing, because the games we have, they are just amazing. I mean, they're so inspiring, and I'm starting to do it.
Hi, I'm Alan. So for the last 5 years, I worked on mobile games as a game designer. I was at King on Candy Crush. Now I'm on at Wooga, working on puzzle games, Jelly Splash, and hidden object games, Pearl's Pearl. I am very excited as well about this because I agree the games are really, really great, and I always feel I'm learning something as well when I play them and give feedback.
Hi, I'm Simon. I'm the lead game designer at Rovio in Battle Studio. There I'm in charge of all the design teams, new products, and also work as a lead designer on my own project. And today I'm looking very much forward to this deconstruction. I think the games all are pretty cool, and some of them are quite unique, and it will be interesting to see what everybody has to say about them.
That's great. So now, as we all know each other, let's start for the first game. We have a couple prizes on this deconstruction, and one of them will be for the audience prize, or whatever it's called. So after each deconstruction of the game, there will be a QR code. You need to go up to the scene and scan it, and then vote yes or no. So the game which will receive the most yeses will get a special prize from Pixonic. Yeah, right. That's our prize. It will be the iMac for the better games. So let's start. And the first game is a game called... Yeah, that's a video, right. It doesn't have any sound, so we have to voice over it. I don't know how to voice over this. Yeah, the people clapping on the... Last time it was a video with a shooter game, and I was like, pew pew. Oh yeah, pew 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 pew. Pew pew pew. Yeah.
Okay. I was surprised in the first part of the video because I never seen it. Was it the game we didn't have in Deconstruct?
Does it look like the typical game studio?
We want to make great strategy. Millions of people to pay.
Okay, so the first game is Game of Lords. It's a Sambrina studio from Russia for the mobile platforms, made by on the Unity engine. And the first part we'll deconstruct will start Alan.
Cool. Yeah, we can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, as all the games, as I said, was very interesting to try. And as soon as I started playing the game, one thing I felt very clearly was that there was a very clear focus on the audience. So this is kind of more mid-core, hardcore, and like the graphics, the themes, kind of this fantasy war was very clear, which was good. And I'm going to be mixing pros and cons. I did have some doubts straight away on the characters. Like for instance, this assistant, just kind of like the usual, sexy, attractive an assistant who's helping you, and I thought that felt very generic. That was a bit a problem I had throughout the narrative as well in general. Was like the interactions with the other characters as well felt a little bit flat. That was a pity because then we can move to the next one. When I went into the gameplay, I found a lot of potential very interesting. So first of all, I like the map. I think this is the second or first map. It was like relatively clear, who I was and the opponent. It felt quite immersive, so I like that. And it was quick as well to learn. So it didn't take me too long to understand how to upgrade buildings, send units, and kind of deal with the enemy. And I could see already, from a level design point of view, a lot of options. One thing a little bit that surprised me was that at the first level was quite easy, but the second one, I really struggled a lot. Yeah. So one thing I have to say, like, I'm a game designer, but I'm not a very good gamer, and that's something I cherish because it forces me to go through the game like with more neutral eyes, you know, and to look at tutorials and try and understand what's going on. And here I felt like I was a little bit lost trying to send my troops, that my fortresses were being destroyed, and I felt like from the first to the second level, the ramp up was too hard. And a little bit too, I was confused about, first I thought it was more of a clicker, and so I thought, oh, just click and send units and then you win, like some other games, but no, actually I realized there's a real strategy element, which is a big asset. I think this was great and can allow for very interesting gameplay, but there wasn't enough time for me to learn it. So the second level was a bit of a challenge, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some churn when you look at numbers for that. Some minor things as well, like there were elements such as this fisherman house, which I thought could be part of the game, and they weren't, so maybe it would be good to clean up to make it even more clear. And another thing too is, maybe we can go to the next one. Yeah, I really liked the celebration, kind of victory element. You even get some rewards, they drop in front of you, they feel very heavy, and that is always great, especially after my second level, since I struggled so much, it was nice to actually get a reward. And on the character above, only when I got my first reward, I realized I am the king of that character. So that was something too that surprised me. I thought, these establishing shots were not clear enough. So again, the narrative was a little bit generic and weak, but overall I really liked the reward part, and I felt there's potential for an economy. And looking at the metagame, so I'm going to use this term as many use it for mobile games to describe the layer that is not the core gameplay, but everything that's around it when you kind of slow down and take breaks in between the core gameplay. It was very interesting. I thought there were a lot of individual elements that I really liked that fit the genre. For instance, there were like some strong role-playing game elements. I think on the castle, if you tap, you have the king, which is you, and you can upgrade items and so on. That was an interesting twist because many of these games are more focused on the buildings, units, economy, agriculture. It was nice to have individual, and people always tend to players connect a lot to characters. So that was nice. But on the other hand, I felt that too many things were already unlocked or unlockable. So I started tapping around, trying things, and I was quickly overwhelmed. I was like different units and things. There was even a dragon, I think. And I thought, okay, I don't have a very clear hierarchy. What's more important? What should I start with? And without even a very explicit tutorial, just with the order of unlocks, I would have had enough information to better structure my resources and plan my time. And I do feel, as a last comment, in favor of storytelling. I think this too actually was a nice kind of environmental storytelling, the sense of a castle, you're building it up, so that was cool. I think the map as well had some story on it, visually, and that I liked. So I think this is, second last slide. Again, it's about the story. When I tried following exactly what was happening, it was not very clear to me. So there were some weird sentences, like, even the point of view kind of changed a bit. I wasn't sure who was who, and it's such an important thing, the establishing shot at the beginning. So I would really go and look at standard cinematography and just like how the beginning of movies are and make it very similar. So I wouldn't try and do anything too different, and maybe interview people and make sure they know who they are, what happened, and who's the villain. I don't even think there was actually a main enemy. That's a pity because it gives like a long-term goal. So that maybe was a missed opportunity as well. I mean, the dragons, I guess, maybe were, but for me, dragons are more like environment, like storms, like who is behind the dragons? Or maybe there should have been a super clever ancient dragon with big scar, and okay, you know, this is the enemy. That was missing. And this is, as a last slide, a reference of a game I think that did some things very well, that Game of Sultans, from which I compared to, and I found like some interesting learnings potentially. Like the meta game here is similar, it's a palace, but it was most of the things were unlocked. This is, by the way, my account. When I started playing, it was very clear to me what did unlock afterwards, and there was some narrative related to each of the elements. So it helped me build up this feeling of being, like in this game, it was super clear. I was the Sultan. There were all of those wives I had to seduce and children. Of course, it's very cheesy, but it was very clear. This power fantasy was clear, and the palace enhanced it. Whereas, like in this other case, the narrative was at the beginning a little bit muddled, and I didn't see it, and the unlocking was not clear. Other thing, monetization, I think was, and I'm not sure I've ever said this before, but it was too timid. Usually, as a game designer, I try to tone down monetization. In this case, I felt it was a little bit too timid. And if you look at other games, I mean, most mid-core, hardcore games, there's gold showering on you and everything. And I felt like maybe you don't need to go to that, but you can definitely add a little bit more. And there was lots of free real estate for the HUD. And if you're planning to add things, and maybe I didn't get that far, I would just have locks then when you can actually see there's other options on the menu. So I think that's it. It's a game that had very clear focus, which I found really cool, a lot of potential, and but still I think it needs more polish, especially core gameplay, so to ramp up more clearly, and then the meta game to break it down so that you have more clear steps and narrative.
That's it?
Yeah.
Right. So I guess this was the first time when the Game of Sultans was used as a reference for something. And the overall review by Avan is 6 out of 10. So Simon, your turn.
Yes. Thank you. It's really hard to actually catch up now on everything that Alan has said. I think you brought it really well to the point. Definitely the first time when you come into the game, it feels like a little bit you're not quite sure who you are, why you're there, and why are you fighting. Yes, you establish like there is some kind of bad guy, and you need to kind of rescue the kingdom, but then there is nothing that really drives you forward. You come to the map, you do some fights. What I'm missing the most is some kind of like little tidbits in forms of quests. I think that's kind of like the easiest thing for you to do in this game, that I always know why am I going to this next fight? What am I trying to achieve? Some intrinsic motivators are obviously always nice to have when players just want to play for the sake of playing, but some extrinsic motivation so that you know what is kind of the next thing that you're working for is really helpful. What Alan also said, you have this really nice map where you play and where your meta side happens. Things are very, very clear. It gets cluttered really, really quick. At times you don't necessarily know, is this now important for me or not? And you end up clicking through things quite a bit, which then turns out to be unnecessary clicks. In that regards, you can surely streamline the experience quite a bit. Otherwise, when you can collect something, it's more or less quite clear, like when you get the new stash of coins from your castle, and the animation and the feedback there was really, really nice. Next slide, please. Then, when you come to the map, I think it shows very clearly where your progression is. I really liked this part where I can actually choose a different path. So, as a player, I have a little bit of a choice there of what I can play. But then again, one real big feature that I kind of missed here is I only get to play on this PvE map. It's challenging from a power perspective so that you know which units to kind of bring, and having a lot of units and overwhelm your opponent, but it felt just like the only way I really have to progress through this is through power creep. Like, make your stuff stronger, and then you win the match. It would have been interesting to have some additional challenges here. And you have this kind of boss fight coming up there, and I think that was teased really, really well. But I feel a certain amount of variety in here was a little bit lacking. Next slide, please. No, that's all.
Anything to add?
Okay. Well,
okay. And the overall review by Simon is 7 out of 10. So I guess we all want to know what the Vera thinks about it.
Yeah. So started from the beginning. The beginning was really inspiring because from the first picture I saw that it's really interesting. Something interesting happens around, and I like the art style. But about that intro video, I have to say that I would like to see it a little bit more like more actions in there, because it was kind of a little bit slow and not giving enough information for me. And I think that it could be done just with a proper motion design. Not the art is cool, I think. Maybe we can add some effects, some like background parts or something to move it faster sometimes, or go through from one scene to another one quicker, and with changing the angle or something, and it would give absolutely another energy, another experience, and make it a little bit faster and more interesting. It's about the previous story, and then we can go to the next one. About the main character, the girl we're meeting on the game. She is so nice. I mean, she is really, she has its own character, some features, and a lot of emotions. And I like the way they work on emotions, because they're really live, and it's really hard to do, because usually on game characters, emotions they kind of not so real. We just using the basic face, and then like adding a smile sometimes from the picture, from the photo, and it seems not real. This girl, she's really like, I feel that contact with her, and it's really nice. But let's go to another slide. Then I'm facing the first main character in the game. I mean, oh my god, who is it? The thing is, the difference between those characters so big. And I mean, maybe it's okay for a target audience, because maybe if the target audience is mostly men and they have to like a girl, but I think that also that would be nice to be able to feel like, to be able to feel like you could take a place of the main characters on the game, and like,
Yeah, it's just inconsistent.
yeah, something like that. But they're really like kind of not so living in beautiful persons. Let's go to the next one. About the all the main areas, like a core gameplay, a meta game, I have to say that the art of on the town, on the map, it's really cool done, because it's nice, it's a high quality render and everything. It's quite readable and it's clear, and the visual style, it's united. So the common level of art style on that game, it's really nice. Maybe one thing that I could say about Maytown is it's a little bit noisy, because there are a lot of things around, a lot of buildings and details and stuff. But the thing is, we have our time to try to figure it out then while we are on a map, because it's not fighting happens around, and we can just spend some time to try to understand what happens. So it's still okay. Let's go to the next slide. And this is a battlefield. And in the battlefield, I have to like say that it's really great done, because I understand how hard is it to make every detail so clear in this size, because I can see every unit, I can see which unit is mine, and I can see enemies and my units and defend very quickly. I can understand the difference between different units. I can understand there is my building, there is buildings of the enemy, and the background is really on the back side, and not giving, not making a mess with the important items on the map. So, and also interface is working. So I have to say that maybe this map is one of the samples of like it's made really great. Let's go to the next one. It's also the storytelling map or progress map, also very clear and nicely done. I don't see any problems in that map, so it's great. And going to the next. About user interface, like just checking it, not in terms of user experience, but from the visual side, I have to say that there could be some little issues with composition or sizes of fonts or colors, like a little bit. I think that it needs to be arranged a little bit. For example, if we are speaking about spaces, the element can be like space between elements means something. And for example, that checking that spaces, we can say that the space between name of the mission and this information have to be smaller, because it's a kind of information that compares each other. But for now, the mission's going center upper, and we're starting to lose it. And the lab information is kind of separated from the mission. I mean, it's little things, but they have to be just arranged. And I could suggest to just check all the interface in terms of all those spaces, designs, and accents, and maybe rearrange some stuff a little bit. So basically, that I can say about the game. First of all, I think that if we can work a little bit on characters, it would be great, at least for main characters. And secondly, maybe interface also needs some work, but about map and everything on the core and meta gameplay, it's really nicely done. So
let's see the score. My bet is 9.
Almost.
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 Yeah. Okay, so an overall review is 21 out of 30, so that's, yes, quite big. So let's give the audience a chance to vote for the game. So I remind you that the prize for the audience award is the iMac from the Pixonic.
Can I also add something?
Oh, from the jury, right. Okay, yeah, sure.
The only thing that I had to add, that I evaluated the game in terms of professional level of art, I have to say. That's why it's just 8.
Okay, so meanwhile the audience is voting. I'll torture you with the questions. So, Alan, the first one is for you. If you would to change one thing in the core gameplay from the game design perspective, what would it be?
So I think Simon nailed it when he mentioned that I mean, the core gameplay looked a little bit like a feature creep, like a power creep, so you just have to gain more and more and more to. Whereas I think there was very much an opportunity there is here to have a strategic element. So where do I place my resources? Where do enemies come from? Because you have so many interesting elements of the speed of the units coming towards you going. So I would probably, for me, I would decide to go for that element, make it a strategic gameplay rather than just power creep. That's much harder to do level design, but I think it would pay off.
Okay, Simon, the same question for you, but for the meta gameplay.
I really liked one part in the meta very much, is that you can customize your main character. And unfortunately, some slides got lost, so I could have dug into this just a little bit more earlier. But I think making that whole element a lot more prominent, because he is a very important character in your core gameplay, and focusing on the meta side just a bit more on that, so that it becomes visible. Like you have the smithy where you can manufacture extra things. You can, upgrade his armor and his sword and all these things. But it's a little bit hard to find, and it feels right now very underwhelming. Where I would think this is something that's very, very cool and something that you would want to progress on quite a bit. And it is your main character. It is you. So when it's hidden away like this, it feels, like it's not important, even though it is.
Okay, Vera, so if you would need to reskin this game and move away from the medieval fantasy, what setting would you choose for this game?
That's a really interesting question, because it's hard to answer, because I like this style it have, and the only thing that I would like to do is just change some characters. But maybe, I don't know, dragons. Let's add dragons. It's like suddenly saying.
Add some dragons.
But
well,
no, the thing is that main hero, the same stuff, but from the visual point, main hero need to be reworked.
Okay, so let's see how many votes does the game has. And I'm voting yes.
It's in percent.
Yes, I said. Yeah, and it's 57% for yes. Right, so let's move for the next game, which is Tiny Mario.
Hello, I'm Dor.
I'm Shafa.
We are stop-motion artists and we are creating a stop-motion computer game by the name of Tiny Money. Everything will be made out of plasticine, the characters are sculpted,
By hand.
the sets built out of scratch and covered in plasticine,
By hand.
everything made
By hand.
and actual materials moved
By hand.
and shot one frame at a time
By hand.
by camera.
Oh.
Okay, so this Israeli game Tiny Money for the PC and based on Unity. That's gonna be interesting. So, Alan, your word.
So I'm not going to steal Vera's things. I'm not going to say anything about the visuals, which were amazing, but it was really beautiful. And so trying to leave that aside, I think what struck me straight away is the whole topic of level design, of course. Like an adventure game, it was gloriously so an adventure game. It was very old school, and it was really nice maybe to see the little hand going around and just clicking things away to find a solution. And there is an audience for this, and I think it really, again, felt very focused and very directed to them, or dare say us, because I like those games as well. And I like too that there was some sense of direction as well on the screen for this first level. So you come from the door and you're trying to solve somewhere here. It made sense. And maybe I struggled a bit to understand what elements I could interact with, but I think it was okay because they were clear enough. I wonder if, like, for next future levels, maybe there'll have to be some way to solve this, but for this level, at least, it was okay. But I can see the potential issue. And what happened here? Well, I mean, you have to put like sugar, milk, coffee into this kind of bowl, and then pour it into the cup. And that's where I encounter, fortunately, my biggest issue, I would say, because it's very scripted, very strict. So you have to put first the sugar into the bowl first. And I think if you try pulling the sugar or the milk without the bowl being there, nothing will come out. And that actually made it really hard, and I got stuck again, because I get stuck at games, as you can see. And it took me like a few minutes, which I think for the first experience shouldn't be the case. You should sail smoothly through, say, oh, this game is really cool, and then be ready, get like more energy to deal with harder levels. So for me, like, it was actually all the ingredients were there. It was really, in this screen, like, I felt it was really solid adventure level. But what was missing for me, a little bit more freedom. So like, if the sugar, like, came down anyways, and he said like, oh, why am I wasting sugar or something? I'd be like, I don't have to waste the sugar. Maybe I should. And then later on, I think that surprised me positively was how I quickly understood that you can go into the wheel, or call it a rat wheel or squirrel wheel. I don't know, because and maybe there's a little bit of a philosophical symbolism there. I'm not sure, but I saw it, and that was great. And I did miss a bit of a celebration when you managed to get all the ingredients into the mug, like even just some steam coming out or something. Like you put a lot of work. In my case, several minutes because I got stuck, and then it's nice to see some sort of celebration of this. But otherwise, with these corrections on the kind of order, making it a little bit less scripted, oh, that would have been great. Last comment: I tried leaving the room, and to me felt forced that I couldn't leave, so again scripted. If the door had locked behind me, I would have subconsciously just thought, okay, the door is locked, But because I came in and nothing happened to the door, I tried to go back, and I felt, oh, the designers don't want me to go back. I have to stay here. So, the small things. So this is Machinarium, which is probably some of you have played, a very good adventure game. And I think they made, you can see some things very well that were interesting inspiration for me to look at. First of all, they were more explicit with teaching things, so press here, do this. And I think it's not the most elegant. I know it doesn't look great, but it really would have helped me, for instance, to know, for instance, the suitcase, before I didn't mention it, you can find the spoon inside. It took me a while to realize, and that would make it easier, smoother for your first experience. And then they made the pieces you had to deal with at the beginning very obvious, like this ship comes, flying ship, and drops the pieces of the character who's a robot. So I knew first thing, okay, I have to tap on those pieces that just fell down. I had no doubts. So maybe I would make it again more obvious as they did. And again, you can see here like very clear composition, like you go up and then downwards, there's no way to go back. The door issue is not there here. Like you know you're falling into trash, you want to get out of trash. You're not going to climb away. And this is same developers, Samaros, the following game. I just replayed it to check if they did the same with, because you know often sequels of games, you can see changes and improvements, and maybe some things you think were cool, they remove them, and you go, actually no, it was not that cool. If they removed it, they still kept explicit explanation, showing how to use the mouse and so on. So, I mean, that hints towards probably keeping more explicit deep hints at the beginning. And it could be even reactive hints, like maybe some people get it, I don't know, like maybe you know the two of you found things faster, but for me, it's good to have the character after like 30 seconds of idle saying, maybe if I did this, that would help. So the players who struggled. Yeah. And last thing on the narrative, I found it really interesting, very compelling. The whole setup of like the more money you have, the bigger you are, the smaller, physically bigger, and the less money, the physically smaller you become. So kind of as he's paying his debts, he's shrinking. I think that was great. I just feel it could be like used and showcased even more. Like I was missing that one narrative big drive, you know, like he started doing this job and that was more or less the end of it. That was more of an introduction, but I would have liked a hook. Like for instance, at the end of it, like he just sees this massive check of 1 million lying on the other side of the room or something. It's like, and you can think, okay, trouble is happening. Like he's going to try and get it, but things will go very wrong. You know, it's like, okay, I can see this is the game. Whereas like here, it was like great setup, and then the hook was missing, which maybe is coming later, but the earlier, the better. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed it.
Okay, and the score is 6 out of 10.
And this is because more level design concerns. So I think there's a ton of potential. With right level design and introduction, I would have given more points.
Okay, Simon.
Yes. Too much drinking last night, and so bear with me. I think this was a really, really brilliant game. It's very nice to see a very fresh take on a point-and-click adventure. The one thing that I'm almost the most sad about it is that after this level, the game didn't continue. So I think that really speaks for the game. You have a really good setup for the story. You know why you're there. It's very quirky and funny, but like Alan said, it doesn't quite continue after that. The biggest thing I think right here is when you finish preparing this coffee, there's just basically his boss who picks up the coffee, and that's it. So there's nothing there where it's like, oh yeah, great, you solved the puzzle. Something happens to your character. Maybe now, you know, he actually, you know, got the coin or something that increases his wealth, and maybe he grows a little bit. Gameplay-wise, it was really clear where you are. The goal was very clear. You knew what you had to do. Figuring out how to get that job done, it was at times a bit frustrating because the feedback of when you're doing something wrong wasn't clear enough. So when you try to pull the coffee or the sugar or trying to get milk from the cow by squeezing the cow, which I found really, really entertaining, it just tells you that something is stuck or something is wrong, and it didn't necessarily hint you how your approach to solving the problem isn't right. I think one really great opportunity that you have there is that you can really use your character to tell you and give you hints what you should be doing. I would expect, you know, he's not there the first time. He knows how to make coffee. And even though you're playing that character and you are him, he can tell you a little bit like, so if you pull the coffee thing, like 5 times the wrong way, like he could give you a hint like, hey, you might want to try that or this, so that it's not so frustrating. Also, there is a very kind of clear sequence in which you have to do things here, and that wasn't so much of a problem for some things, but then in other cases, he does hint at you that the fire is low, for example, to heat up the water for the coffee, but then there's plenty of other stuff that you need to even do before you can even interact with the fire. So I think the timing there wasn't quite perfect. Because then you start focusing, oh, I need to figure out how to make the fire stronger, but that is a step that you can't actually do until you solve the previous puzzle of adding coffee, sugar, and milk. One thing that I think was really easy to use was the suitcase in itself and getting the item out of there and then tapping on it. The whole sequence of opening the suitcase, though, felt quite slow and clunky. And if you get it wrong, it just, puts the item back in, it closes the suitcase, and you can't try multiple times for something different quite easily. I think that was a little frustrating. But overall, I think it was a really great starter level, but make it easier for the player to play this game. Next slide, please. So here we see, you finally solve the puzzle, and then you have the right feedback, and that immediately allows you to solve the rest of this puzzle. But to get to this point was actually really hard. Yeah. And then when you actually solve this puzzle, I really liked how you continued the story and set us up for what's happening next. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's going to play this as well, but I really liked how you portrayed your the boss of your character, and you can tell by his attitude and through the animation that yeah, this guy's a jerk, but you still have to do your job, and maybe someday you will be him. And just a touch in your storytelling for everything that you've done from the initial first scene going into the puzzle and how you wrap it up. For if you just think of this as a condensed experience, it was really, really great, and it really makes you want to continue playing and see where this goes.
So, and the score is 8 out of 10, which is quite high. So, Vera.
Yeah, so now it's my turn to say that art is just great. I mean, I was enjoying every minute, every one of those 10 minutes I had in gameplay. Was the best, the best time of that evening. It is great, and it's incredible. I mean, those guys, they're crazy, in the best way. It is. And maybe it's not like kind of visual style that could be like mainstream in industry, but if they're taking it like in terms of indie game, I think it could be like a pearl on any collection, because it's really, really great. And I also have to say, okay, we made it from clay, it's cool, but characters are super nice. The composition is super nice. Having colors they choose, super nice. And the animation is really of professional level. I mean, I was just staring how that character is walking around and checking every move and saying myself, oh my god, oh my god. It's really great. Okay, let's think a little bit about that. Could I say? Actually, I'd like to add that for now I feel better, because I also was stuck on the point, and then I just checked the video. And I just checked the video. I told myself, okay, I'm
Cheater.
a cheater, yeah, I'm judging art. And oh yeah. So about art, can we go to the next slide? Yeah, it's just showing the composition and showing how great the art is. It is, really. And let's go to the next one. About the game field, I also feel that way, that it's a little bit difficult to understand which elements are interactive and which are not. And sometimes I think that for that two things, it's easier to understand that I can do something with them, but with another elements. Maybe we could make them a little bit brighter, yeah, and finishing that art, and or maybe use some interface elements to point it if we are like waiting too long on the or trying to do some wrong things. We can just maybe put some interface to point which elements we could like contact with. And the last thing that I can say about visual stuff is interface. Interface element, like it's really just the case we have, but it's almost the same material as the game field, and it's a little bit hard to understand that it's separate part. I think that interface have to be separated from all the other graphics, because it's another part of information. And also the thing that you told about that it was too long to open it and then close it, maybe I even could do it not from clay, but maybe from some stylized paper or something that you could just, you're having some notes or something. So separate it from the art of the game and to make it like quicker to connect with interface. This is the only thing. But generally, it's perfect, and I'm waiting for the next part of the game. It is really cool.
Okay, so I guess you have more slides.
Oh yeah, just showing the picture because I was just enjoying it. Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's 10, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's 10. It's
yeah.
10, definitely.
So let's see the total, and it's 24 out of 30. That's really great. And again, we have the voting for the audience. I made a small mistake. So the audience prize is couple tickets for the whole year of the White Nights, and an award. So please scan the QR code. You can move forward to the stage and for better recognition. So, tricky questions, right?
Yeah.
Alan, so the game is quite classical point-and-click adventure, right? Which one modern game mechanics would you add?
So, yeah, that's a good question. Like, I feel even not adding mechanics could still make the game work. But I'm wondering, when you're doing lots of level design, it always helps at some point to have a little bit of variation. Maybe combination, so combining things. So I can imagine at some point you open the suitcase and then you can combine two items and do something. It wouldn't be too complex to explain, and you can potentially exponentially increase it.
Okay, sounds fair. Simon, so at Rovio you conduct a lot of gameplay mechanics and experiments with the genres. So if you would to make this game a free-to-play game, how would you do it?
I think I wouldn't, to be honest.
That's perfect.
Quite clearly. I mean, for one, point-and-click adventures, I don't think suit themselves very well for being free to play.
The series model when you release it in seasons?
Yes. So in that regards, I mean, there's been plenty of games that have done this, where they've broken down a bigger experience into smaller chapters. I think that as a business model can work really well for this team. And I've tried stop motion animation before. It's a lot of work, and I think it would actually help you guys in sustaining the game on a long, like over a really long period. And I think the story is already so interesting that people will gladly wait a little while for a new chapter to come out.
Okay, cool. So very the more philosophical or maybe practical question for you. So why don't we see a lot of games in that kind of art? Is it like that hard, or?
I think that it's a really philosophical question. Maybe it's about culture, because we're not used to it. I mean, those movies from Clay, they are kind of in the past, and for now we have like Pixar,
CGI,
and and everything. That's why it's a like that cartoony style we are using on the games.
But this style has that, the gentle touch of the, so cozy.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's time to like think about the past and maybe remember something from your childhood, but it's not to be like mainstream. The stuff have to be easy, like stupidly easy sometimes, and this game is not. And this is its own pros and cons in the same time.
Okay, so let's see how much does this game receive the votes. Oh my god. And this is 92% yes. And the next game is Until We Die.
Hello everyone, I'm Dimitri and I was asked to make some
And there should be sound, right?
So where to start?
Can you voice over it? That's your video, right?
One passion for creating awesome games. Some of us worked in the game industry in the past and we've been making prototypes and games for the kids. Hello everyone. Well, my name is Dimitri and I was asked this is me!
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, talking about our company and our games, we have a small indie studio of 4 people, Alexander, Losha and Artyom, and we developed games for about 10 years already. Some of us, not all of us. I'm showing our previous project Dungelot, it's a mobile game. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
It's fine, we are also.
Yeah. Here I'm speaking about our workflow, because we are a mobile company and we don't work in offices. We use Notion for writing down our mechanics and other stuff. Yes. Here I'm talking about the game Until We Die. And I would like to say that we try to figure out what is important for players, not just our vision, because in the overheated market of PC games, it's very important to understand what demands of players. Yes.
Well done.
Thanks for being on stage.
Congrats.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. So let's move on. It doesn't work.
You broke it, Maxim.
Most likely. That's what I do on a daily basis. Okay, so the Until We Die, the PC console Unity game from Russia. I got the wrong clicker or what? Oh, okay. So let's move on. Yeah. Oh, Simon goes first.
Yay! All right. Do we have some pictures? On it? Clicker. No, I'll click just here. Perfect. Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah. So I think first off, when you see the game starting up, you already kind of know where you are. It reminds me a little bit of Metro, but in its very own style. And you set the mood of where you are just brilliantly. Like, it really looks very well thought out, how you're being brought into this world, and what you have to kind of do. It's clear. You have to survive, you have to expand. And just the atmosphere in the game is really, really brilliant. You're being brought in, and you have your couple of characters along with you. And one thing that I appreciate quite a lot in your game is that you made it very easy to understand what you need to do, and that you don't have to have, like, a lot of different buttons in order to do all the different actions. However, at the same time, by trying to be so easy and approachable with your controls, you also get confused quite a bit. So knowing actually what to do in what sequence. So when you get to a point where you want to order one of your guys along and say like build this or collect this, it was a bit of trial and error at the very beginning to do the right thing. And it doesn't really go away even after you've understood what you need to do and what you want to do. I very quickly, of course, wanted to try and explore the world. And you run into the monsters, and I was looking forward to not just pure cannon fodder, but just a bit more action there. I think the feedback was pretty clear. You knew how much bullets you had. There was extra bullets for you to collect over time. And it was quite straightforward, like this is an evil character, you kill it, otherwise it will kill you. But when it came down to actually failing to kill that opponent fast enough, well, you kind of get hit. You didn't feel like you're really in danger anymore. I was running around all over the map having these guys chase after me and hit my character, and I looked like I'm bleeding, but it didn't seem to matter. I hope that it's something that will probably still come, but that kind of feedback is kind of lacking completely, and it destroys the mood in the game, because you feel like you're in this dangerous place, and then it turns out to not actually be very dangerous. Then I really liked, however, then when you progress just a little bit further, how you change the look of the game, and it becomes more like really your base, and the difference between the unexplored place and the unsafe place and the safe place is quite clear. You end up with a lot of characters in your base, and they don't seem to do anything. So I was quite disappointed that I have this builder and this forager to do something, but then I was hoping that I can recruit some of these guys to help me fight. And I was practically always alone. And considering that like you're the boss of the base and you only have essentially one or two guys to order around, felt underwhelming. Once you explore further out, you don't see a lot of change. Things stay pretty much the same throughout. I was a bit disappointed that I actually got to the edge of the map, on the left side as well as on the right. And that exploration part just felt a bit boring quite quickly, because there's no doorways to go through, no platforms or ladders to go up or down. So in that regards, it has a lot of things missing. It has a lot of potential in the game, but it felt quite clearly incomplete. So I really suggest you work on getting more gameplay, more interesting gameplay in there, because I think the game lends itself really well to having that. And at this point, I will shut up now and actually pass this over to Maxim.
Thank you. So let's see what's the score. 6 out of 10. The next one is Avan.
Thanks. So I really agree with a lot of what was said already. Thanks, Simon. And on the atmosphere, like I was straight away, like after 10 seconds, basically, I knew what the game was about: survival, danger, underground, making it out alive, and scavenging. So that for me is like a very great example of when visuals and mechanics match, and you have like they marry, and they have a great-looking baby, which is this. So that was nice. A small note: can you see here the creatures, the enemies there? I think that was, I think there was a lot of great environmental storytelling, like the people huddled on the fire, which later on you meet and get. That was really cool. And the ruins and everything, the hammer and sickle, so like the Russian, everything was great. But then I was surprised the enemies were so visible straight away at the beginning, because I think one of the coolest things, if you think about the best horror movies, you don't see the monster till the very end, later on in the story. So I think that was a little bit of a waste to show them straight away. I would have rather had some shadows, something moving, some maybe blinking pink eyes, and then at some point, the first time you meet them, you're like, whoa, these things are like really scary, or this is finally, they're lurking and they come in. And really agree on what has been said on the mechanics. I felt like all of the main ingredients of the core gameplay were really solid. So you had, like the moving around, the getting tired, like stamina kind of feature was really interesting. So you have to already strategize on when you run, when you don't. Then the bullets too. I think that's looking at similar games out there. There was a nice twist that you could actually attack and use bullets. I'm going to show a reference later where you cannot do this. And there is one thing that you can see here that happened to me was I lost my other members of the initial party within a few minutes, I don't know, 10 minutes. And then I just went on struggling with just like the new guys that were coming in that kept on dying. And so again, I've stressed this a lot today. Content is king, not the company, but actually king. And level design too is really important. So I feel like a lot of the issues that even Simon mentioned previously, like can be solved by level design. So for instance, the monsters, come from both sides. Maybe just at the beginning have a clear place where they spawn from and kind of train you for the monsters. Have as well like the cycle day-night. I couldn't really connect it to the monsters, but maybe I think this is like an interesting reference. Like I find at its core it's kind of Plants vs. Zombies, right? So you're preparing your base, powering up resources, so on, bullets, and then you have the monsters coming in. And this game, became so famous because it did this. It distilled it to its most basic ingredients and made them fun. So, and here you have like the bar below, so you can somehow you're expecting the zombies to come. There's one or two in between, but then you're preparing for hordes. And I felt like this type of cycle allows you to timing becomes a resource. So you start planning for it, and then everything kind of makes more sense as well. And you don't have these random kills, which was what happened to me at the beginning, and then I had to struggle for the rest of the session. And another interesting reference this game made me think about is Kingdoms. I'm assuming even there's actually some inspiration from this game, you played it. And I really love that, for instance, whereas the queen in this game, she can just go up and down and give orders. Till you die, you can actually fight and contribute. For me, that was a great improvement. So I really love it when I see a game that has some references out there but makes it even better. Usually people claim it doesn't happen. In this case, it does, which is cool. And the sense of the base growing and so on, but they did some level design stuff right. For instance, on the day-night cycle, during the day you're safe, at night monsters show up. So I would definitely look at these kind of level design and cycles to strengthen the strategic planning element. And add more fear as well, like maybe hear some shrieks or something when they're coming from whichever direction. And whereas now it just felt a little bit random. And I think I have one more. Yeah. By the way, I assumed it was a level. Then after I saw that the level ends, then I assumed it was a prototype instead. So then later on, I graded it as a prototype. One thing I found with lots of potential and really cool was like this creature that I was very upset from at the beginning. I was trying to shoot it and nothing was happening. And then later, and then he spoke to me as well. And then when I realized it's just like a mirage and it's not real, my mind was blown away. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Maybe this guy had like some sort of PTSD and he sees things. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. But, but it's like you can tell a whole story about his trauma, and then probably he lost his family as well. Maybe this is the creature that killed, like I was just coming up with my own story. And I think this is, maybe not everyone does this, but it's a good sign. It means that there's some story that can be told. And I felt like you can even dial up this element and have the character, like more barks. So just the character saying things now and then. The other helpers mentioning some things. And I think, what's the name? Darkest Dungeon does it very well. You have like the talking heads that just say things when they're stressed or traumatized. And it really helps these like relatively flat characters come to life. And yeah, so that's it.
Just help yourself.
Yeah, I'll go. So yeah, there's a lot of potential. As I said, like this is a 7 out of 10 because I think if you sort out the cycle element and the level design, this can be a really, really great game. So yeah, good on you guys.
Thank you. I guess the next one is Vera.
Yeah. So basically, I have to say that I admire the art part of the game because it is really great. I mean, I would say that it's perfect because if we are talking about pixel art, it's very hard because there are a lot of limits, and we have to work in like a area that we don't have enough opportunities to show everything. We're stuck with those pixels, and it's really hard to like make an expression on the character, or make some part visible, or keep the readability of the level in an appropriate in an appropriate way. And it made perfectly. And then I came to the playing field. I was so surprised of all those parts and textures. How can you like show a texture of the stone with the pixel art? That's really, really nice because it seems so real. The atmosphere is so real, and it's done by pixels, so it's really great. And the way they're using those, like, for example, lights and some atmospheric effects around it. It's not really pixels. Like, yeah, it's light are done by regular way, and it's really nice combination because of this, we can make it more like atmospheric and volumeable, and make the pixel art seems a little bit more modern. But still, we're on the style, and we're not losing that part of pixel art game. And also, then they're speaking about like art. How does it work in the game? It works perfectly because I can see every character on the playing field. I can understand some character features and emotions, and that guy is smoking and saying that smoking like rings. And all the parts that, for example, buildings we build or something that we have to collect, I can define it easily on the map, and it had an appropriate contrast and everything. The only thing, all the things that I had about the game, that maybe some pros and cons I had, it was about gameplay, not about visual part. And maybe the only one thing that I could say about visual part is about user interface, because I needed more information. But it's not also about art, actually. It's more about gameplay. For example, I would like to have information, how much units do I have, how many of them just died, or from what side those rats are coming. But it's more about gameplay. About art, I really didn't find anything I could improve, and I was really surprised. So guys, it's really nice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so you can suppose like it's 10 of 10, and for pixel art, I'm really impressed. Guys, you're cool.
I'm impressed with the score, so... Okay, guys, the overall review score is 23 out of 30, and this is the quite nice for this deconstruction. Once again, I remind you that we have the audience award, the audience choice prize with the couple White Knights tickets for the winners. So you need to scan the QR code and vote yes or no. So do it now. This time I have one question for everyone. So as a man of the business in games, I find one more narrow place in this game is the setting, right? The post-apocalyptic Soviet subway is really narrow place. So what setting would you propose for this game to if you would remade it? Simon.
Wow, it's a tough question. I think the setting right now, just for the whole story, is really great. But you could put it above ground. It could be in Chernobyl, for example, in post-apocalyptic area of today, out in the forest. It could be in space. What if you were on an abandoned asteroid or somewhere that used to be like an old mine or whatnot, and you're kind of stuck there. I think the options are pretty endless, and you can probably tie even some of these ideas into the current game.
Yeah, but choose one.
Yeah, I would put it somewhere above ground in the real world.
Okay, that's nice. Avan, what would your take on this question?
Everywhere, because I think it's such a strong theme, this post-apocalyptic, that you can, whatever you show, be it buildings above ground, or I would not have thought about space, but it's a really cool idea. Like, I'm on board. Monuments, like even seeing like I don't know, like the Seven Sisters of Moscow, all like falling apart, or it always automatically connects to this sense of loss. Like everything we know is falling apart and it's gone. I struggle to. I think maybe maybe I wouldn't pick as a setting for this is like pure nature with no signs of human life, because then I think it loses a little bit this sense of abandon, falling apart. So always try and have some signs of humans were there and then something bad happened and they left.
Like some primitive survival, or the modern person in the wild forest?
Struggling, always like struggling.
Okay, cool. Vera.
So the same question for me.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I think that there is a good point to use something that we really know, and I will just change the location, like maybe some towns, some places we really know, and then destroy them and show in a different way, and then create some creatures around, maybe even with, I don't know. Well, maybe I would say that I would make some real places, maybe from around the world, and then show it in a different way, like after apocalyptic stuff that was happened, and right now we're discovering it from the new way.
Okay, cool. So let's see what's the audience vote is, and I click yes. And the game got 71% yes. Okay, so the next game is, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, probably that's Trees, or Treats. So let's see the video. Nice. Okay, let's see what is the hyper difficult puzzle. So that's iOS Unity Engine game from the Belarus. Simon?
So, yeah, it's not an understatement that it's a difficult puzzle game, I think. But regardless of the difficulty, I think one thing that really stands out, it's a beautiful game. It's really nicely crafted, it's very thoughtful. You guide the players into something that is a bit of a struggle to bend your mind around to understand exactly how to solve those puzzles. And you said it yourself that this is kind of like a calming experience, and I think you've achieved this. Like what the game is trying to be is what you set out. However, having said that, because it's rather a hard game, I would say even harder than other hard puzzle games, it will make it really hard for a large amount of people who like puzzle games to stick with this. It can get frustrating really, really easily. Even something that's as simple as this, if you don't have a little bit of help, you can screw it up actually quite easily to a point where it's difficult to solve the puzzle, or almost practically impossible. What I do like, however, is you have a little bit of a hint system that tells you where a vertex is supposed to go, and it can help you in solving the puzzle, but I think it's sometimes not going far enough. When you do a critically bad move and actually really end up destroying that shape even more instead of trying to fix it, you end up in a position where it becomes unsolvable for you, especially if you're not necessarily seeing the solution anyway, or you're not actually good at solving these kind of puzzles to begin with. I think one thing that you could definitely do better overall to make it just a bit more exciting is when you actually finish a puzzle successfully. It feels almost a little bit underwhelming. You have a little bit of an effect on the vertices that plays, but some of the puzzles are so hard that when you finally solve it, that you kind of want to celebrate it a bit more. I know you're going for a calm game, but I think there is a chance to actually build a little bit of emotional contrast in it. And I think that rewards the player so much more than always staying on that same calm level. Yeah, and here we see something, you know, where the puzzles become really hard. So this is almost overwhelming. And when we go into it and you see this kind of puzzle, even with the help on, it almost makes me want to quit. And it's a pity because I think the game has so much potential and it's actually quite a lot of fun to play. So make sure you don't lose your players, just sometimes through the at least appearance of high difficulty. You told me earlier that you can solve most puzzles in actually just a handful of moves. So if you take more than 5-6 different turns to solve a puzzle, you're probably already going beyond of what's actually needed. So I think really help the players a bit more when they are stuck. I think overall the presentations of how you move from puzzle to puzzle is really nice. It's very clear. It's easy to understand how the user interface works. One thing that I would improve, however, is when you finish the puzzle and now you're done, there is no easy way to go to the next puzzle. I have to quit out to the main menu. I have to click on the next puzzle in order to start it. I think if once you're actually in that calm groove, doing this really breaks your flow. It takes you out from that calm puzzle mode that you're in into like, oh, I need to remember to go to the next puzzle and back to the menu. So streamline the experience on that. And overall, I think it's a good game, and you got an 8 out of 10.
Thank you, Simon. So who's next? G7? Yeah.
I never know which hand is like microphone. So, okay, thanks. I think this was so first of all, I'm just going to agree again on the beauty of the game. I just looked at it and without commenting too much on art, it really made me feel like I want to play, you know, like I want to try and solve this and see what happens. And definitely I do agree that when solving things, I was expecting more to happen, like more reward, but still, you know, I was like curious, it was looking great. And I'm kind of torn on this. I really agree with many of the comments that have been made, but I felt as well, like I think this was first level was okay. I struggled a bit, but I think by the second level already I was really stuck. I was very stuck. You know, and then I thought, I can see this is aimed at more challenging, players who want to be challenged, like harder players. But thing is, and I can say this 100% by experience, you lose players who are not very good, like very slow, like me, very quickly. Whereas like players who want to be challenged, they would stay longer in the game to wait for a challenge. So ramping up slowly actually allows you overall to turn maybe players who are a little bit beginners, they're not very good, they don't have a lot of patience, into very experienced players and kind of wanting to have challenges. Whereas, you know, going hardcore straight away, like just loses all of those players. So definitely I would ramp up difficulty much, much, much slower. And for instance, a game like Candy Crush, many people think it's like super easy and casual. If you look at players above level 150 or 200, they plan a lot. Like they plan their moves like 4 or 5 times ahead. Like they look at the board and they think what might happen 4 or 5 moves ahead. You know, this is really like chess. It's super. But they start with like levels that you just like mindlessly tapping around, clicking. You don't know, and then something happens, explosions, you win, and then later on they start thinking about strategy when they're used to it. And I would like a little bit more of this here. So I think there's really tons of potential, but I was worried about how hard it gets. And I was even wondering if the core mechanics themselves could have a little bit of a twist. Like you mentioned a handful of moves, right? Should be enough to beat these levels, and maybe that could be a rule as well. There was like, I forgot the names, I couldn't find like this origami game where you had to kind of clear up the screen with origamis. That was quite big a couple of years ago. And they had a set number of moves. So you have like, just like in many other puzzle games, maybe 10 moves. And that already gives you mentally even like a boundary, a framework. Like you try the 10 moves, fails, okay, retry. Try the whereas like now you have the situations that Simon mentioned as well where you're kind of lost. You don't know where you're going, you maybe messed up everything worse. And that's something that, rubber banding is really important. That when you're struggling, often the game should help you a little bit to come back. Kind of like in Mario Kart, when you're at the very back, then you have a chance to get some power-ups that will help you, like the red turtle, to go up. And here it felt sometimes that when you were lost, you're even worse than if you were just to restart. So these are things that I think really might be worth to go and look at the core gameplay and do some tweaks so that it's a little bit easier. And even the hint system, I would even go harder. Like now we highlight some vertices, right? I would even go to the point and just correct a bit and maybe make a move for you or push you towards the right direction. Because then I can see myself and many other more casual players playing more, like would really get into these hardcore levels and then really enjoy them. So this would be, I'll go a little bit smoother. And on the meta game, I found it beautiful straight away. I think it really contributed to this sense of calm and beauty and relaxation. By the way, I remember seeing sometimes meditation and calm as dreams, I think, as words in the descriptions. I think it's a great theme. It fits. Maybe you could even double down more and make it more clear. I don't know, just an example, but like some eyes that close or something, you really get this kind of vibe of relaxation. This is where I felt it most. I think just crawling in the meta game. In the core gameplay, I must say, going back, I felt more frustration actually because I was lost. I didn't know what to do. So I think even like helping more here would further, if you're going for meditation and calm, helping more the player would strengthen that feeling, because I feel like trying to solve this kind of puzzle so hard and trying that leads a little bit into frustration. So I think that could strengthen each other. I did miss, though, for the metagame, more of a sense of hierarchy. Like there were a lot of menus, like sliding, lots of different timelines with different content, and I felt, okay, so what's the most important one? What's my main main path? And all the rest were like, are these add-on? Are these going to unlock later? What should I do? Was a little bit too much. So I would have liked to have like my main way to start with, and then later on as rewards, or just somehow unlock the other ones, and not to be overwhelmed by all the freedom. From which, I think as you mentioned, sometimes it was hard to get even back to where you were, like you get even lost. And so what I did I went to do some brief research on like some top downloaded games on the store to see like what puzzle games, like not Match 3, but other puzzle games are kind of hot, to make a comparison. And this one is like Bricks and Balls, I think. And I was looking first levels, core gameplay. You literally just throw these balls around and they destroy things. And it was really easy. But at the same time, like you have like this easy to learn, hard to master, like very high ceiling, because if you aim your balls, like very well, you actually can do a lot of points. If you're just very casual, then you might still beat the level but not make a lot of points. So I think I can see, okay, this is good because if I can get into the game easily, but later on, like to master it, I really need to get very good at this. And that I was missing a bit from the game. And then the map as well, the meta game, very clean, very clear. I could see the progression, and then there were other options you could unlock later. And I thought, okay, so in the end, even for players now in 2019, not just like 2015, 16, first Candy Crush, these elements of like clarity and easy to learn how to master are still strong. So we'll still look at those for inspiration, even when planning a game that is for hardcore, like very players who want to be challenged a lot. Cool. So yeah, that's it. My review. I put a 5 because I saw a lot of potential, but I was very worried with the core gameplay still being so frustrating. And I think that finding some ways, like for instance with the hints, or like limiting the amount of moves, that could make it more accessible, and then later on allow players to grow into this role of super experienced kind of hardcore players. But really beautiful and lots of potential, so thanks.
Thanks, Saman. So let's hear what the Vera will take.
Yeah. So first of all, I have to say that these kind of games, like it's about design. We don't have like a real art on the game, but we have a lot of design, and we have to think carefully about space, about colors, about shapes. It's also about fonts. It's everything about design stuff. And I think that I have to say, I will also say that there is a lot of potential in design. And there is a like common stat that united everything, like those lines and something that it is really designed, and I can feel it. But if we will tell about colors in there, I was a little bit, also I'm an artist and I'm very sensitive about colors. I am, that's the problem. Sometimes I can't play the game if I'm not okay with the picture. And that's why I couldn't spend much time on the plains field because it was too bright for me. And I am sensitive, I'm an artist. And other people, they're not so sensitive, but maybe sometimes you guys was feeling that you're stuck with something and a little bit frustrated, not just because you couldn't solve the puzzle, but also because it was too bright. And then everything is too bright, it's just keep your mind being up, like in a position, and it doesn't let you to relax actually. For example, if we'll put the background a little bit darker and the contrast between background and the elements we're playing with will be a little bit more clear, it will be easier for us to perceive, to read the figure, and then we are on the contrast, then the colors are too close to each other. We have to think about it constantly. Which color do I see? And they are too close. That's why you're just losing a part of energy to read the picture every minute. That's why for that kind of games and for design, firstly, for a minimalistic design and for that kind of games, it's really important to choose a right contrast. And then in the second part, I also made the figure a little bit less bright. I understand that it could be an issue with the gameplay because it's really important for us to understand which color do we see and to not miss that part because we are playing with colors and we have to see clearly the difference between them. But also the difference between that picture and this one, it's a little bit easier to spend time on that picture because it's a little bit calmer and still we are playing with colors. They can be nice. But it's really the atmosphere in that you can let yourself go. Okay, nothing is dangerous. It's not just red and we're running. No, it's calm red and it's a clear contrast, and we can spend time on that field. And one more thing, all those flying little points on the background, they a little bit bothered me. Then I was playing because they was moving in the background, and it made me a little bit uncomfortable also. And I imagining, I played at home, but if I'm, for example, on subway and it's reacting on the position, and I'm at subway and something moving every time on the background, it was also a little bit like didn't help me, I would say. So I maybe would use those points just on the map. And maybe also make a little bit less of them, because it's a beautiful design, and you can use it, and it creates like a unique picture you can remember. But I would make less like more clear accents and maybe less lines and points on backgrounds to separate the meaningful information and everything else to make it a little bit more clear. And I think that if we could do it with the art, maybe it also could solve something that you guys told about gameplay, because I think that part of the points we could improve in gameplay, they also could be improved just by art. So that's why, and also in that menu, it's a little bit different to difficult to understand. Like all the information we can see here, it's almost the same meaning. Like the accents, they are almost the same for every part of information. And I feel a little bit lost on that screen because I don't understand which is the most meaningful part, and then where can I go to the next point and the next point. So it's also about user experience and about design. So you have to point the most meaningful information to make it seem in the first place, and then to show the viewer the second point and the third one, and the meaning of those points can, to be yeah, I think, well, yes, so it's about design, about accents you're using, about color scheme you're using, and about some, I'd suggest to simplify a little bit everything, because it could make it way more clean. And my score is 7 of 10, because it's really have a lot of potential, and think is that everything is done, and we in the art way, and we have to simplify something a little bit and then work on colors a little bit, and then it would be perfect.
Cool, thank you, Vera. So let's see the total, and the overall is 20 hour 30. So scan the QR code, give your vote for yes, and let the guys win the award. So meanwhile, I have one question for you and one for you. So if we put away all the advantages of this particular game, combining the elements of the hyper-casual games like one-hand play and the minimalistic art style and the hardcore difficulty, could it be a new trend in the industry, or it's too hardcore for the casual audience? Alan?
So if I got it right, I think keeping the mechanics but wrapping it into a more casual metagame?
No, it's more about like if more games based on those combination, the hyper casual like gameplay and the hyper difficult difficulty, is it possible that can work on the big market?
Yes, and there's a trend definitely. If you look at puzzle games from like 5 years ago versus puzzle games nowadays, they explain less. New puzzle games go straight into more complex mechanics. You can literally plot like the type of blockers or elements that make the game more challenging. And now it's much faster, it's much more. And even look at the same games and look at the sequels, they're getting harder, and the metagame is getting more complex as well. So before it was just a path you go through, and now it's like houses or collections or monsters you have to defeat and so on. So it's already happening, I would say.
Okay, cool. Simon, do you agree?
Yes, I perfectly agree with this sentiment. We totally see games that try to be very casual but have a very high difficulty. And a lot of these games ease you quite nicely into that difficulty, teach you what the basics are, but then ramp it up to a point where, well, they're way too hard for me, but there is clearly an audience that does like these difficult games. And I think we see it also, in more real-world puzzles, like take a Rubik's Cube. I can admit I have never been able to solve this, but I know people who are crazy about them. And I think this is an audience that will enjoy these kind of games, and there's more people out there that would surely like to see that kind of game. We see it in our own games as well, and yeah.
Well, let's see. Okay, Vera, so as far as understood, the, let's say, minimalistic graphics in the games is not that easy to make, right? Yeah. So what is the most difficult part in designing the graphics like that?
I couldn't shortly answer that question because it's about design and it's wild discipline, and it seems really simple. Like result we have is really simple, but you have to think about every angle, every line, every part of the space you're working on, and there are a lot of theory you have to know. You don't have to be able to draw with your hands some crazy stuff that's classical artists do, but you have to know a lot of theory about physical, about perception, about psychology, about how does it work. And I mean, in our university, then we had those lectures about design and also designing books and stuff. It was crazy because sometimes it took us about half of an hour to understand that part of the book, because it was just describing each part of experience a teacher had working with visual perception and psychology and stuff. And we wasn't prepared for that because we didn't have that experience. And for us to understand why do I have to put that part of design to this part and why it's like this and not another way, we had to spend a lot of time. So I have to say that it is a really difficult sphere. Sometimes it's way more difficult than the traditional art.
So minimalism art is more science than art.
Yeah, this is the point.
Okay, cool. So let's see the voting score. And it's 46, which is great, I guess. Okay, guys, next part will be really fun because we will have the feedback on feedback. So I'm inviting the developers of the games here to give to tell the experts, are you agree or not, or do you have anything to add? Guys, just one by one. So the game of words comes first.
Yes, hello.
Who is that?
It's me.
Yeah, come here.
Okay. I'm sorry, my English is not very well. Yes. Если да, если кто-то. Спасибо большое вам за ваш фидбэк. Очень интересно было послушать. Мы, когда выезжали сюда, мы с ребятами составили небольшой списочек того, что, скорее всего, вы нам скажете. Да.
Yeah. So thank you very much for your feedback.
Да. Перед тем, как уезжать в конференцию, мы собирались с нашей командой, когда узнали, что мы попадем на Deconstruction.
So before coming to the conference, when the guys learned that they will be the part of the Deconstruction workshop,
Да, мы составили небольшой списочек из того, что, по нашему мнению, вы нам скажете. Большую часть вы нам сказали, спасибо большое, но есть еще много интересных моментов, на которые нам стоило бы обратить внимание, и мы их сами не заметили. За это вам большое спасибо.
Yeah, so the guys made a short list of their predictions of what will you say about their games, and most of those things on the list you actually said, but still there are some points that they новые узнали, правильно?
Да.
Yeah, some points that they learned from this deconstruction, they have to work on this to make the game better.
Да, вот один из моментов был такой, что мы до конца не понимали, кто такой герой на самом деле, да.
So one of the points was that the guys not actually realized who is the hero.
Да, сейчас мы сделаем на это больше акцента, кто он такой, расскажем в игре, сделаем эти изменения, и вам большое спасибо за ваше время и за ваш фидбэк.
And after the deconstruction, they will make more accents on the hero itself and who is he and how to explore it. So thank you very much for the feedback.
Yes, да, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Can I ask the question? Do you have in your list some points that we didn't say that you think that you could
Nice question.
change in your
У нас, например, игровая карта, когда на нее выходишь, совершенно непонятно, какая миссия последняя. Это вот, наверное, очень фрустрирует пользователя. Он выходит на карту и думает, куда нажимать. Боже мой, что мне делать дальше? И из-за этого, мне кажется, у нас есть потери игроков.
So one of the points from the list that wasn't mentioned is that on that map, the user doesn't understand where is the last mission, like the next mission, and the guys think that there is a charm of the players on that moment.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions or do you want to add something?
No, I just wanted to say it's a really fun game to play. I think there's a lot of potential to it. Just make really sure that you give the player, at least at the beginning, enough help and reason to be there.
I just have a question around the strategy element. Do you want to make the game strategic, or more just like combat is a way to showcase your resources and power?
Ну, мы хотим сделать из нее стратегию в первую очередь, да, и как бы добавить в мету немного вот экономической составляющей, которая будет влиять на основной вот стратегический геймплей.
So it's a strategic first game, but the guys want to add more economics in the meta gameplay that will affect the core.
Да. Ну и добавить еще PvP хотим в ближайшее время, где-то через недели-две у нас появится PvP режим. Можно будет.
And also in a couple of weeks there will be the PvP mode in the game, which will be added.
Thanks.
Cool. Спасибо огромное. Okay, so the tiny money. Right, we have slides. Oh yeah, tiny money.
Hello. Thank you very much for this honor of coming here and inviting us. It's our first game ever trying to create a game or a stop motion. We are not game designers. Me and my partner are stop motion animators, like we said in the film. Everything you said hit right on the nail. One of the things that you said is that was hard and there wasn't enough introductory is true, because you started off at the fourth level. The first one is what you see in the film, him in his house, and that's the introductory. We started off with the fourth level because it was the most complex to build, and we wanted, because it was our first game, to have an extreme learning curve, and started off with the hardest mechanics to build and understand how to create this, to work with this kind of technology and create all of the loops that will work together. And it's doesn't seem that intricate, but it is, that everything will come together and look that way. Then that's pretty much it. And thank you for all of what you said.
Thanks for you for the game. It's really, really, really nice. And I would like to see the wild version.
Thank you.
I had just a quick tip or question for you. Like, maybe a question. When you try levels, do you create them straight away and then just get people to try them? Or do you kind of maybe do them on paper first or something? Because I'm just wondering, like, if you get feedback on a previous level and then you want to change something, it sounds very scary. Like, how do you have to rebuild everything? Like, how do you do it?
Okay. Like I said, it's the fourth level. We created it more like a movie. We have a cinematic that we sketched out, and a lot of it, like you saw in the trailer, we built in 3D, then we sketched it out again, and then we built it out of real materials. What we were aiming for is, like it says, Tiny Money, it's more of a social commentary about the capitalistic world that we live in, and you did hit it on the nail when you said that it's like a rat wheel. Then yes, it was part of what we wanted to say. And we were aiming for something commentary, but at the same time silly and fun to play at. And yes, to change stuff, there are certain stuff that is not a problem to change it. Like, everything is broken down. You don't see it in the trailer. We do put up green screens on each thing that we are going to film next. Then a lot of times we can reshoot them or reconnect them and do certain changes and manipulations to them. But if it's something like for the whole set or something like that, sometimes it is more problematic. But like I said, we do make a video board that you can see the gameplay before we really start shooting.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, and I think for the audience too, how long does it take you to actually build, animate a whole level?
By hand.
By hand.
By hand, yes.
Okay, it really depends on the level. Like I said before, we started off with the most intricate one, and we did a lot of trial and error, more with building our armature and puppet, and we spent a lot of time on that because we wanted to make it cheaper and then it came out more expensive. And we needed to find, we talked with Aardman Studios, and we talked about how we do the armature, and with Leica, how do you paint silicon, because supposedly you can't paint silicon. And we found out a lot of different things. And to create the first level, like a puppet, after you know exactly what you need to do, takes about a week, but you need to know what you're doing. And to build the set, an easy set like the house is about approximately maybe a month. And the harder one with all of the wheels and all of that is closer to 2 months. But the animation itself is a lot quicker, especially at this point, because we have all of the loops for the walks, the picking up, the throwing, and all that stuff. And we understood how to create the connection points that the animations can work and click together, and it won't make too much of a, what's called, like in 3D gimbals, like jump cuts or stuff like that, and will be as fluidic as possible. There's, like I said before, it's still a demo, in a demo stage. There is still cleaning up, like I'm sure you saw. Some stuff are not still picture perfect. As an animator, you always want it to be perfect.
Maybe you see it because it's your professional stuff, but I was really enjoying animation. They're really nicely done.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let's invite the next devs from the Until We Die title. Too much devices in my hands. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, come here.
Thanks for the opportunity of being the part of this Deconstruct. It's very inspiring. Thank you for your expertise. Ты не против? В общем, в первую очередь, что я хотел бы сказать, у нас еще игра на достаточно ранних стадиях, и многие механики мы просто еще не дописали. Мы абсолютно согласны со всем, что вы нам сказали.
So first of all, the game is still in the production phase, and a lot of mechanics are undone yet.
Мы обязательно добавим возможность выходить на поверхность Москвы.
So the guys are totally agree with everything you said, and they will definitely will add the option to get on the ground level of this post-apocalyptic Moscow.
Мы не согласны с тем. Да. Мне кажется, что тема Москвы и метро не так уж и плоха. То есть, несмотря на то, что, может быть, наша аудитория кажется уже, мне представляется, что важно показывать реальные места и делать игру о чем-то, о чем люди могут говорить, сопереживать. Ну, возможно, это больше относится к гражданам нашей страны.
So this is a point towards me. So what the guys disagree with is that that Soviet Russia Moscow setting is not that narrow. So basically, it narrows the audience, but it's all about the people and the players.
Sorry, I just didn't clearly get this one. So you disagree that?
Yeah, it was my point that the Soviet stuff was narrowing the audience, but the guys thinks slightly different.
And I agree with him on that. I think there's enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree
That's why.
as well.
That's why I'm not an expert.
Это все.
And that's it. Thank you very much, Dmitry. So the guys from Trees here.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited. It's beautiful. I start this game as small experiment in form and shapes, in color, and I want this game make not other games. Yes, I'm architect and I love form and I love shapes. I love color, and and that small little experiment, and now I standing on white knights and experts, famous experts see my game and spend a lot of time on my game. Is excited. Is this beautiful and okay?
It's impressive as an experiment. Just saying, if this is an experiment, I'm impressed.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure, for sure.
Ну, можно я еще скажу? Конечно.
Помочь переводом?
Да.
Давай.
Я все проблемы я как бы знал и до этого, да, да. Спасибо, очень важные, ценные замечания.
So he knew all the issues of the game like long before the deconstruction, and he thanks you for the feedback, for those valuable suggestions.
Я понимаю все проблемы с цветом, я очень хорошо к цвету отношусь, да, но это эксперимент, и в цвете тоже эксперимент. Есть сейчас модель низкополигональные объекты сейчас ассоциируются после Valley.
He agrees with all the comments about the covers, so he joins the covers and he knows it.
После монумент Valley приглушенные цвета, они ввели моду, да. Мне захотелось немного поэкспериментировать и сделать поярче все.
So after the Monument Valley, there is a trend on those, soft covers on the low poly models, and he just wanted to make something more bright.
То же самое с логикой головоломки. Я не искал аналогов, а наоборот пытался сделать что-то свое.
And same goes for the game mechanics. So he wasn't looking for anything like references or analogies. So he wanted to do something that comes from him.
Я кое-какой нарратив как бы вкладывал в это и хотел сделать такой микс ярких именно детских первых впечатлений, скажем. Калейдоскоп, когда увидел ребенок когда первый раз он увидел какие-то яркие обертки конфет, когда первый раз он увидел змеев в небе, покачивающиеся такие.
Yeah, so the narrative part of the game that was meant is all about the kids' impressions when they first see the kaleidoscope or the wrapping paper from the gift or a candy or what is the name for the zmei? Kite, like the wind kite in the sky.
These toys on ocean, this other. Ну, в общем, это эксперимент, и спасибо огромное. Спасибо.
So this is an experiment, and thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thanks to you.
So now we need to give the awards. Дима, можешь мне микрофон взять? So first of all, we will set the jury award, right? So we need to vote. I guess we can do that one by one and choose the game who won. So Simon. Oh, it's already. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Yeah, right. So it's here. So the the jury choice received the Tiny Money game, and the prize is come to the stage. Dima, I guess this is the time when we need the microphone back. Yeah, come up for the photo. Climb it. Yeah, so, and your prize is beside the award is the iMac from the Pixonic, my favorite game developer in CIS region. So this is for you to make better games. I mean, like even better games. Okay, and right, and there is also 2 premium tickets for the next White Nights conference. So we can choose any of the White Nights that will be in the next year. So, do you want to say something?
Thank you very much. I did not even expect this. This is totally awesome and it caught me unexpected, and thank you very much. And it's really heartwarming that all of this hard work that I put into something like this, and me and my partner, and it's amazing. Thank you very much for all of you for this opportunity.
You know, this comes with conditions
actually,
that you have to finish your game.
Actually, don't go away, because according to the audience choice, you also got the second prize. Yeah, and yeah, so you.